So Sean.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you've been watching the news, but it seems
You don't know. I've been watching the news. Oh my. Okay, go ahead.
Seems like the housing market's going to crash, right? I mean, we are seeing interest rates go up. We're
skyrocketing.
Skyrocketing inflation, right? We're seeing tons of price reductions. Like if you're on Zillow, you're seeing price reductions all over the place.
Yes.
So what we're going to do about now is we're going to, if you've decided that you're going to move to Orange County, you may be wondering, should I buy now? I mean, is it a horrible time to buy a house? So we're going to talk about that right now.
So stay tuned. What's up, everybody? I'm Sean Dezahd.
And I'm Courtney Dezahd, and we're with Keller Realty right here in Orange County, California. And if this is your first time to the channel, don't forget to press on the subscribe button and don't forget to press on the bell so that you're notified every time we upload a new video, because we upload new videos every week and they're all about what it's like to live in Orange County. And we know from our YouTube statistics that a lot of you guys that are watching, you aren't subscribers. So definitely remember to subscribe.
And you might be thinking, wow, Sean, okay, I love Orange County. I love the glitz. I love the glamour. I mean, especially I love the weather. So I can't wait to move out there now. But the thing is, I'm not in the area and I don't know anything about Orange County. So what do I do? And I totally get that. So what you want to do is you want to reach out to us, either give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email so we can have that conversation and really help you find that perfect property for you.
Okay. Let's talk about the skyrocketing inflation, right? And I'm going to definitely lean on Sean for this because Sean is the whiz kid when it comes to the numbers.
For a local real estate guy.
Yes.
And I'd say whiz kid, well, I follow CNBC and some of these things, but yes.
He's seen everything, right? He saw the 2008 crash, saw
2000, like the whole 2001 situation. Mm-hmm. Saw obviously 1991. I wasn't in business then, but my family was, and so I saw that whole crazy savings and loan crash that took place then. So yeah, I've seen some things going, and obviously we're seeing something. Well, we saw the pandemic start too.
That's true.
That was an interesting weird time.
Very anxiety filled time.
Yeah, it was, and that was weird what it did to the real estate market. But so this is yet another phase, right? So this is another situation where we're seeing the market shifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about first the crazy inflation, right?
Yes.
We have seen inflation like crazy. So what exactly has happened recently at the time of this recording?
So basically, so inflation was skyrocketing. And then it seemed like for a couple of months, we're like, okay, I think that we're kind of past the worst of it. And to be honest with you, we may still be. But having said that, the Fed has been super aggressive, right, raising interest rates and everything like that to combat inflation. So what we saw was, last week, so this, at the time of this recording, so it was last week, and we saw the CPI data come out.
So what's CPI?
Yeah, that's a consumer price index. So this is kind of basically a basket of goods or basket of items that people are weighing year over year as far as how the prices have been increased. So they talk about CPI data, month over month and year over year. And ultimately what happened was people were expecting it to be a bit lower than what it came in. It came in a bit hot. And so what happens there is that people freaked out. The stock market, went down really like crazy and all stuff because people go, okay, they were hoping that was going to be a little bit more lighter on the inflation data. So that way that Fed would be more dovish with their, what has been hawkish terms as far as wanting to raise rates to, again, tamp down inflation. That didn't happen. So now everyone kind of obviously resigned that the Fed is going to remain hawkish on the raising interest rates. And ultimately, how that affects the real estate market is that with the raising of interest rates from the future funds rate, basically what happens is that through, it's not a direct one-to-one correlation, but what we're seeing is ultimately what happened this last week was mortgage interest rates have moved up. So they're above 6%. They're the highest they've been since 2008.
So if rates are as high as they've been since 2008, are people expecting it to go higher? So obviously we can't predict the future, right? I mean, who knows? Weird things happen, right? Yes. But what is the expectation at least right now? So
I don't foresee short term interest rates coming down anytime soon. So that's, let's get that out there. So we were, started off the year at about 3%. We're now above 6%. So obviously it's a doubling of the interest rate, which is huge. It's a big, that's a big component of home expense is your monthly payment, right? And so therefore your interest rate is a vital factor of that. So one, we don't really see, I'm not, from the who I'm following, I'm not foreseeing that interest rates are going to come down anytime soon. It may be maybe a year from now, maybe a year and a half, 2 years from now, that we'll see some relief. But in the meantime, we're probably gonna have to be living with these higher interest rates for a bit.
So does that mean, that sounds like then I shouldn't buy a house for 2 years?
Yes, that's a great question, because I can't tell you how many times we field calls from people that are asking, like, is right now the right time to buy? Is because, obviously they're seeing that the interest rates are higher. They're seeing that we may be going into recession. They're seeing all this bad news. And honestly, if you're monitoring the real estate market, it's still chugging along. I'm not saying that obviously the market has certainly softened. So that there's no question about that. We've seen the market softening for sure. And again, it makes sense, right? Because all of a sudden people's payment their monthly payment went up like a lot, especially year over year. And so what we're seeing is that, but I will say that this is not all bad news, because the softening is actually fantastic news. I've been honestly waiting for the market to soften. Again, helping buyers, find a home has been challenging in the last year or so, to say the least, because they had to be so super aggressive to buy a property. They had to way overbid. We saw, when we saw offers $50,000, $100,000, $300,000 over asking. I believe I had a client at $350,000 over asking, didn't get the property, right? It was just insane. And again, as an agent, I don't feel comfortable. I never was one of those people that rah, like, you got to do this, you got to do that, because always felt very uncomfortable pushing somebody. But if they wanted it, this is what they were going to have to do. They were going to have to way overbid, because there were 20 other offers on the property. They were going to have to probably sweeten the terms of the deal. So they had to probably let the seller stay at the property for 6 months or 2 months, rent free. It was crazy. Okay, so they had to do that. They couldn't even get into their home. What? Then they had to be in a situation where they had to waive the appraisal. So all of a sudden, what that means is that, okay, when you're buying a home and you have a loan on it, the lender is going, well, okay, what's a home worth? Because we're not going to just go blindly off of the sales price. We need to send someone out there, a professional out there, to evaluate the price. So based off of that, let's say you're buying a property for $1.5 million, the lender comes in at 1.2. If you waive that appraisal contingency, basically that was on you to what they call bridge the gap. That means that you had to come in with that extra $300,000 to make the deal happen. You pre-agreed to that situation. So, what a lot of people did, they had to waive their appraisal, that's
more cash.
That's more cash out of pocket, right? So they had to do that. They had to sometimes. There were certain occasions where people were willing to waive their inspection contingency, which is insane, because therefore you don't know for sure how that roof is and how that's why inspections are always recommended to have. So some people waive their inspection contingency, which is crazy, and they waive their loan contingency. They're like, what, we are in this, so that what that means is when you waive these contingencies, that means that your deposit, which is many times 3% of the purchase price, if not, again, it varies, of course, but let's just say as a number of 3% of the purchase price, that's live. That means that you have agreed to forego that money right off the bat. It's not protected if you waive all your contingencies. So basically, if you had a $1.5 million purchase, that's $45,000 that you just said, what, I just hope I get to, apply this to the purchase of the home, because if I can't fulfill on the deal, that money's gone.
Or, earlier in this year. So what is it like now? If you want to buy a house now, can you actually shop for a home, or?
Thankfully, yes. I am so happy that we can at least, properties are sitting on the market for a little bit longer, and all that stuff. And so there's not this crazy FOMO, this fear of missing out situation where, you just got to get it now and you got to way overpay. We're seeing much less bidding wars. Not to say that some homes may have bidding wars. It's not like, depending on how they're priced in that specific situation, but you're not seeing as a general whole crazy bidding wars taking place. So what that means is you can have your appraisal contingency in, you can have your loan contingency in, you can have your inspection contingency. You don't have to necessarily way overbid for the property. So as an agent for helping a buyer for a property, I'm so much happier about being able to get them into a situation where they're not feeling pressured in, not from me, but let's say just from the general situation of having to just let go of everything, just hope and pray that everything's going to work out. So and also not to mention, because the property is sitting longer, there's actually some properties for them to see. It's one of those things. It's really scary when you're going, if you're one of 50 bidders on a property, it's almost like you won the lottery to have the right to overpay for a property. It's kind of a crazy way to look at it, but it was just a really unhealthy situation. Now with the market softening, they don't have to crazy overbid. And basically to kind of illustrate how this helps you as far as combating, let's say, what's going on with the interest rates going up. Yes, the interest rates have moved up. No question about that. Like, they basically doubled. So let's say
do you think they would go up even more?
They could. I mean, obviously, there's very high likelihood that they could keep going up until they, let's say, ultimately come back down. However, having said that, is that let's say you're buying a property and for the next year or so, because the higher interest rates and stuff, you're paying an extra like $30,000, $40,000 because of that higher interest rate. Well, what that means though is that when you don't have to overbid by a couple $100,000, you're not necessarily in a bad position here. I mean, yes, no one wants to pay more than they have to, but if you saw the bidding wars that were taking place, it was just absolutely insane. So have time to find the right property. Yes, you might be paying a bit more for like the loan payment, but you don't have to like crazy overbid for the property, and you can have the appraisal contingency in place. So again, right there, if you're having to pay a couple $100,000 because the appraisal value didn't come in, you're already kind of ahead from that situation anyway. So again, everyone's in a different situation. I'm just saying that it's not all bad news.
So, but if we are seeing a softening in the market, I mean, do you think that if you buy now, like the market's going to crash and you're going to, buy a home for $1.5 million and then all of a sudden it's worth like $750,000?
I know. So like if everyone thinks back, 2008, this is going to be the crash that takes place. Okay, and to be honest with you, and we get that question a lot, and I appreciate the question because obviously, all we know is when the market has corrected, it was a really bad correction that took place. I mean, certainly the market has softened. I'm not saying that, obviously, so I can definitely see a further softening in the prices for sure. I mean, I'm not seeing that, I can certainly see that scenario playing out, especially because let's kind of go back a little bit because I want to also talk about, we are seeing price reductions. Mm-hmm. So people go, oh my gosh, I see all these price reductions. That means the market's crashing. Not really, we're not seeing a crash. What we're seeing is price reductions because what we're seeing in, let's say April, May, June, like that little crazy little peak is people trying to get in before the interest rates was really popping. So they were way overbidding. So you had this crazy market spike. And so what happened is that we have seen a softening, certainly off of those levels for sure. The prices have come down from that. But that was a weird, honestly, a weird outlier point because the frenzy was just absolutely, it's nothing that I had ever seen. I really hated that moment in time, to be honest. So what we're seeing though is that, a lot of sellers, what you see is what during this whole market rise is that next, that high sale that took place, let's say a property did sell for 1.5 million. People go, there's the next property that would hit the market. They're like, okay, that's the floor of the price. So therefore 1.6, 1.7 is the next, probably let's say similar type property that hits the market. So they would, and it would just keep on going up and up and up. So that's what everyone's done. That was the next step. That was a floor. And what we're seeing now is that 1.5 million sale, that's the ceiling, not the floor. So some people, they didn't get the memo, and so they priced their property too high. And honestly, I had some clients get caught up in this too, where they priced their property kind of anticipating further appreciation. That appreciation doesn't, that month over month appreciation is not happening right now. So they price it, let's say 1.6, 1.7. It's crickets. They're not getting any offers because they're priced too high. And so what they're having to do is they're having to reduce their price to get it back to market level so they can generate interest. And again, remarkably, when you do that, I mean, I've seen that happen with my clients that, a couple that did do that, once they brought it back down to market values, we're in escrow. So it's one of those kind of things where you just kind of have to, some people just didn't get the memo again, and then not to blame them because the market was just rocketing up, but it did change really fast where that ceiling became, that floor became a ceiling.
And then, but what about in the future, right? So if I buy now, is the market going to crash in the future? I mean,
yeah, that's a great question. I personally don't see it only because yes, our inventory level, the amount of homes that are on the market is higher, right, than it was a few months back. You have to understand though, we were dealing at historically low inventory on the market. So it doesn't make, so it's not surprising to see the inventory levels going up a bit, but we're nothing close to, let's say, again, when you think of market crash, you think of 2008. So let's kind of compare the two eras, right? So in 2008, when the market started crashing and inventory was massive. It was huge, like way more than what we have today, right? So that's one thing. And that's a vital component because when you have, let's say, reduced demand to an extent and you have increased supply, that's where you get crazy, that's when you can see like prices dropping to kind of hit that equilibrium. But we're not really seeing a massive amount of supply. So it's keeping the market from crashing. I mean, it's keeping, there's no real reason for sellers to have to do a fire sale because again, they have way too much skin in the game. Pretty much most people, the vast majority of homeowners have equity in their home. I mean, obviously how much, it kind of depends on how long they've owned it and how much they put down, but the vast majority of homeowners have equity. So one, there's not really a distress situation because, at the end of the day, if they need to sell the property, they could sell it and still actually make some money on the transaction. So they don't have to sell, right? Like in a distress situation. Second is what we're seeing is that, these homeowners, they were really well qualified. Like, their average credit score, I believe, was 752. And having done a recent purchase not that long ago, the whole time, lenders were very strict on the guidelines as far as qualifying for a loan. You had to, produce, had to show income verification. You had to show asset verification. You had to show that you were at your job. You had to prove that you were able to make payments on this loan. So it wasn't like 2008 where if you had a heartbeat, you could get a loan. That was, that's what happened in 2008. And to compound the issue, there's a few things that compound one. So one, they have these thing called ninja loans. No income, no asset, no job verification. You just walked in, you could buy $1 million property, no questions asked, basically, right? So that was one. Two, did you have to put a lot of down payment? No, a lot of times you had zero down for that same loan. So everyone was just anticipating 30% appreciation perpetually. So it didn't matter to them, right? So no skin in the game at all. And then three, they had a lot of times they had these teaser rate loans. I mean, this is crazy. So they were buying a loan that's let's say 7 or 8% interest rate, but they were only paying a teaser rate of 1%, and they could do that for a full year. And so the payment was so, and that was adding to the principal balance of a loan every month that you're making that minimum payment. I mean, it was such a recipe for disaster, and it's no wonder that it absolutely blew up. So today, you're showing reasonably good credit. You're showing that you can make money. You're showing that you have the assets for the to actually be able to make that payment as far as having reserves. So on top of that, you're putting a good down payment. This whole especially the last year or so, people that were bidding, they weren't doing low down payment loans because that seller had their options. They were going with the high down payment loans because they wanted more certainty of the deal. So people were buying cash. They were buying 20% down plus, that was the vast majority of the market. So these people already have skin in the game. So there's really, I see no reason as to why we're going to see this massive distress sale type of situation. Again, maybe some one-off weird things but again, as a general market whole, I am not seeing why all of a sudden everyone would just go fire sale price because at the end of the day, these homeowners, they have really good interest on their home loan. So they could just go ahead and rent it because the market for rentals is crazy strong right now. There is just I don't see the urgency as a general whole as to why someone would do a fire sale price.
So obviously, everyone's situation is different, right? And, nobody can predict the future. So what about if you're moving to Orange County and you decide, I actually just want to rent. So is that, a good option for some people? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we tell people all the time, okay, obviously I listen to I go through these conversations and everyone's in a different space. They don't know Orange County well, or they're worried about the market, or there's something about their job. There's something that maybe prevents them from buying now. And there's tons of time I tell them, maybe right now isn't the right time to buy. I mean, based off of what's going on in their personal situation. So based off of that, you could certainly rent. Now, having said that, while the market for the housing sales is softened, for rentals, it's still on fire. It is super strong because, nothing has changed the fundamental fact that we don't have enough housing units for the population that we have ultimately, right? So that has not changed. So basically, for rentals, it's really a very strong market. It's ultra competitive to get into a rental right now, and it's expensive to get into a rental. And the thing is, you have to realize is that rentals, they don't they don't, it's not like you can buy a rental and count on that rental, amount per month to be there perpetually. It's going to be one of those things where you can see year over year increases. You can and most likely will. Mm-hmm. And so that's just one of those things where you can't count on that payment to be there till the end of time. Even people that feel like they have an amazing relationship with that, with the landlord going, I knew a guy that basically he had a really good situation. The landlord said, "Don't worry, you can stay here as long as you want. I'll never raise my rent on you." And then that landlord gets a divorce, and they have to do something about the property. And so now that all that promise and all that stuff it's out the window because they have to do something with that property. And now this guy is scrambling to find a place. So at least when you do own a property, you can at least count on that payment, right? Because let's say you're getting a 30-year fixed loan, that payment more or less you're kind of locked in on for the most part. So at least you can count on that. And second, what's also really important is that, and I can't stress this enough, as we were saying that we could see interest rates coming down at some point in the future. Not right now, but I'm just saying at some point in the future. And nothing is preventing you from refinancing your property at some point in the future when the interest rate's more enticing. So you're married to the home because you own it. But the interest, the loan, the interest rate, you're not married to that at all. You're renting that. You're dating the rate. So basically, at some point in the future, you could, anticipate, refinancing and basically getting some nice relief off that payment too.
So that's it. That's our video.
And remember, we are licensed realtors in the state of California. So as much as we love making these videos, what we love more is to help you with your real estate needs. So whether you're looking to buy or sell a house, what you want to do is you want to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email.
Or you can reach out to us via WhatsApp. However you want to get a hold of us, we've got your back.